This is a message to each of you who are thinking about the 26th of October. Maybe you're worried, maybe you're scared. Maybe you think you might lose your job, maybe you think you might get put in prison. Let's send a message to the world, to Keir Starmer especially, that the fight is not gone, okay? Not in us anyway. I am travelling back to the UK for literally the fight of my life. Men right now are fighting for their lives in prison, who have been falsely imprisoned, unlawfully imprisoned, pressured and forced and blackmailed to plead guilty to crimes they haven't committed. All of this will come up in our documentary, which will premiere on the 26th of October.
Tommy Robinson faces imminent imprisonment for simply making a film. The Labour government is allegedly preparing fresh contempt charges against him that could mean another 2 years behind bars, without a jury trial or proper defence. Why is the establishment so terrified of his film Silence? It's not because it contains lies, it's because it exposes corruption that powerful figures desperately want to hide from you. With 166 million views, the truth is spreading faster than they can contain it.
Tommy Robinson has been jailed at Woolwich Crown Court for 18 months after admitting contempt of court.
I mean, he's effectively been jailed for repeating false allegations he made over the past 2 years that were in breach of a court injunction. He, for 2 years he didn't, and then he started repeating them in online interviews and in a film. He made a 90-minute film that was shown a number of times.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Let's face it, folks. When a government goes to extraordinary lengths to suppress a documentary, you've got to wonder what they're so afraid of. The Labour Attorney General is reportedly preparing fresh contempt charges against Tommy Robinson.
He believes the public has the right to have all the truth, not just what's provided by the mainstream media. He was following his principles. He passionately believes in free speech, he said, freedom of the press, and his overwhelming desire is to expose the truth. The judge said that the breaches were not accidental, negligent, or merely reckless. They were deliberate, direct, and flagrant.
Specifically targeting the continued availability of his documentary Silence on X. Now think about this. This isn't some fringe concern. We're talking about a government official actively working to remove content that's already been viewed by millions. What's particularly troubling about these potential contempt charges is how they sidestep the normal legal protections most citizens expect in a democratic society. There's no jury trial involved in contempt proceedings. Robinson would face severely limited defence options, and the potential punishment? Up to 2 years imprisonment without the due process protections that should be afforded to anyone facing such serious consequences. It's worth noting that Silence wasn't banned because it contained falsehoods or deliberately misleading information. The attacks against it aren't about factual inaccuracies. Rather, it appears the documentary was targeted precisely because it exposed corruption that powerful figures desperately want to keep hidden from public view. When authorities can't attack the message, they typically resort to attacking the messenger. This approach represents classic lawfare tactics, using civil law processes as weapons to silence political opponents, rather than addressing the substance of their arguments.
For me, behind bars, the way I was treated, I was taken to a prison with quite a low Muslim population. What I'm known for is criticising Islam, so there's been many planned attempts to murder me and kill me in this country. Not seeing or speaking to anybody, and they used the reason that I was in danger. Now, they would have had risk assessments before I went there. I was purposely taken to be put in danger so that then that reason can be used to then put me on solitary confinement. And it took months before I got the opportunity to go before a judge. Once the judge heard what had happened in the trial, we found so many illegal and wrongdoings within this kangaroo court.
It's a dangerous precedent. Rather than engaging with the documentary's content through counter-arguments or evidence, the government seems intent on simply making it disappear and punishing anyone who ensures it remains accessible. What the establishment clearly didn't anticipate was the documentary's phenomenal reach. Despite concerted efforts to suppress silence, it has reached an estimated 166 million viewers worldwide. That staggering figure demonstrates the public's hunger for information that those in power would prefer to keep obscured. Every attempt to censor the film has only intensified interest in its content. The timing of these new charges couldn't be more ironic. They coincide with Keir Starmer's recent statements about Britain respecting free speech while standing in the Oval Office with President Trump. The contradiction is stark, publicly championing free expression on the international stage while simultaneously working to silence dissenting voices at home. This kind of hypocrisy doesn't go unnoticed by ordinary citizens. The contrast between how Britain treats journalists who expose uncomfortable state secrets versus establishment-friendly media figures who reinforce government narratives is equally telling. Those who challenge power structures face legal threats, financial ruin, and potential imprisonment, while those who toe the official line receive access, accolades, and often lucrative opportunities. This double standard reveals much about who truly wields influence in British society. It's becoming increasingly obvious that the establishment fears Tommy Robinson not because he represents some genuine danger to public safety or national security, but because his message resonates with millions of ordinary citizens who recognise the hypocrisy of those in power. When people see their lived experiences validated by documentaries like Silence, it threatens the carefully constructed narratives that keep existing power structures intact. The government's approach here follows a predictable pattern we've seen throughout history. When authorities cannot refute information through legitimate debate, they resort to censorship. When censorship fails, they turn to punishment. And when punishment fails to deter others, they escalate to more extreme measures. At each step, they inadvertently validate the very criticisms being levelled against them. What's remarkable is how counterproductive these tactics ultimately prove to be. Every attempt to silence Robinson only amplifies his message and confirms the very corruption he's attempting to expose. It's a classic example of the Streisand effect. Efforts to hide information inevitably draw more attention to it than if it had been left alone. The government's heavy-handed approach has transformed what might have been a modestly viewed documentary into a global phenomenon. The establishment's heavy-handed tactics have created something they never expected, a political alliance that defies traditional party lines. As Tommy's legal team sounds the alarm about accelerating government attacks designed to make an example of him, we're witnessing the formation of an unprecedented coalition that directly challenges the power structure's narrative about grooming gangs. What's truly remarkable is how this controversy has united figures from across the political spectrum. In a move that would have seemed impossible just months ago, Labour peer Maurice Glassman has joined forces with Nigel Farage of Reform UK to back a parliamentary bill demanding a statutory inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. Just let that sink in for a moment. A prominent Labour figure and the face of Brexit traditional political opponents now standing shoulder to shoulder on this issue. Lord Glassman didn't mince words when he declared, "The gangs are still operating. The British public expect action, so the police and other services finally get a grip of this disgrace. I support an inquiry to get to the truth and improve how all parts of the state deal with sexual abuse of children." His willingness to break ranks with party leadership speaks volumes about the gravity of this situation and the growing discomfort many feel with the establishment's handling of it. This unusual alliance becomes even more significant when you consider the timing. With local elections looming, Glassman's decision to align with Farage signals that some political figures now view the cover-up as more damaging than any potential electoral fallout from challenging their own party's position. It's a calculation that prioritises truth over tribal politics. The campaign group, Crush Crime, has taken matters into their own hands by preparing a detailed bill for what they describe as a time-limited, focused, high-powered inquiry. Their director, Dr. Lawrence Newport, expressed the frustration many feel. Crush Crime has prepared a ready-to-go bill for a time-limited, focused, high-powered inquiry into the national scandal of grooming gangs. The public demands justice. From this there can be no further excuses for delays. There must be no stone left unturned in the search for the truth. His conclusion highlights why the establishment fears this movement. This is a chance for politicians to end the cover-up culture. We gave the government a chance to do the right thing, but we are now forced to bring forward our own bill because they have failed to act. This represents citizen-led action at its most effective, not merely complaining about government failures, but creating concrete solutions. The ripples are being felt across the political landscape. Conservative frontbencher Katie Lamb delivered a devastating indictment of the system's failures. Thousands of victims in dozens of communities have had their lives ruined by these gangs. The state has failed these children and their families time and time again. In many towns, gangs will still be operating, and the public servants who covered up these crimes have faced no consequences. Her demand cuts straight to the heart of the matter. We need a full, independent national inquiry to uncover the scale of these horrors. The victims deserve justice, and the public deserves to know the truth. When a sitting Conservative MP directly challenges the establishment narrative about grooming gangs, it signals a seismic shift in what's politically permissible to discuss. Even more telling is Shadow Home Secretary Chris Phelps' support for a national inquiry. He stated, "I will be pushing an amendment to the Crime and Policing Bill to a vote on the floor of the House to establish a national rape gang inquiry, but I support any legislative measure to bring about the national statutory inquiry so desperately needed." This cross-party momentum demonstrates how the issue has transcended traditional political divisions. The timing is particularly significant. In January, Shadow Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips rejected a request for a government-led inquiry, and Keir Starmer has consistently resisted calls for a comprehensive investigation. The government's stopgap measures, a rapid 3-month audit by Baroness Louise Casey, and funding for local inquiries have been widely criticised as insufficient. Even Tom Crowder KC, appointed by the government to lead these limited inquiries, expressed concerns about the communication and scope of the investigations. When the government's own appointee questions the process, it speaks volumes about the institutional resistance to full transparency. What we're witnessing with Tommy Robinson isn't merely about one documentary or one man's freedom, it's the front line in a battle for your right to know uncomfortable truths. The establishment's fear is palpable in their legal manoeuvres against him. Each time you share silence, you're not just supporting Tommy, you're declaring that you won't be dictated to about what information you can access. The government is attempting to make an example of him, hoping to intimidate others into silence. The question facing Britain today transcends political divisions. Will we surrender our right to expose corruption, or will we stand firm against those who would criminalise inconvenient truths?